Let's look ahead to tonight's TV because a new crime drama called Maxine about the co-conspirator involved in the murder of schoolgirls Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman will hit our screens.
Well, this follows a number of other true crime dramas and documentaries, specifically Dahmer, detailing the grisly murders by Jeffrey Dahmer. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Soham Das joins us now to discuss why we are all so obsessed with true crime on TV or indeed on podcasts. Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. What is it? Is it kind of like the rubbernecking tendency that we all have, whether we like to admit it or not?
Good morning to you both. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, good question. So I would categorize it into three different areas, the reason that we're obsessed with true crime. First of all, we like to be armchair detectives. We like to be armchair psychiatrists, and also we like this sense of justice. So as detectives, we like the thrill of solving puzzles. And when documentaries and even dramas are made well, they reveal little bits of information. So we like to sit back in our sofas and try and piece together who did it and why they did it. And in terms of the psychoanalysis, I think that sometimes some of the perpetrators seem on the surface relatively normal, relatively human. So we're fascinated with what drives some people, a minority of people, into committing these dark kind of acts. So we're trying to sort of psychoanalyze what aspects of their childhood forced them down that road. And then finally, I would say that almost everybody, we have this innate sense of justice, right? So it was spoon-fed to us since we were kids that the bad guys need to get punished. So I think we get a certain satisfaction by seeing justice being served. So I think those are the different areas.
Yeah, it's also, if I may add another one, the fact that it is true that it did actually happen makes it darker and more believable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fiction's always fun, but life is stranger than fiction, especially when it comes to true crime. Yeah, so sometimes we can't fathom how some people can do such horrid, twisted things.
And, as you say, people like to see justice served, but quite often what's gripping in these stories, and I think of my own obsession with Making a Murderer, which was my first introduction really to the world of true crime, which followed the Avery's family who'd been involved in this, in a case. And there was this sense that perhaps there was a miscarriage of justice in all of this, and you kind of... You get on board, don't you, with their campaigns, and you find yourself, I mean, I'm desperate for an update in this case, and sometimes it's the miscarriage of justice that really attracts attention.
Yeah, I would agree. So I think our first need is for this sense of justice. And as you say, when it doesn't happen, we like to feel outraged on behalf of the victims or on behalf of the falsely accused. So, yeah, we want to see that story ending. We want some sort of story arc to know that eventually somehow justice is served. And I would add to that by saying that sometimes the documentaries and the programs themselves lead to justice. So they shine light on and pay attention to cases that have otherwise kind of fallen by the wayside. So this added attention makes police reinvestigate. And in some cases, it does actually bring justice where it wouldn't previously have been served.
It does also sometimes glamorise people involved in these cases, doesn't it? And I'm thinking of, in Making a Murderer, there were weddings in prison, there were love letters being sent to convicts. Is that sometimes a negative to all of this, that we get sort of, perhaps we think we know more than the jurors or the judges in the cases and know better than that and fall in love with the wrong people?
Yeah, I think there's always a risk. I think it's a fine line between putting out information for education and making it a bit too lurid for entertainment. And I think some documentary makers and people that make dramas manage to straddle that line very well. And I think some go over the top. But you're right. There are occasions where there's information or at least opinions formed on perpetrators that are made or are forced by the narrative of particular documentaries rather than factual information. So there is a risk that you can skew trials or you can skew public opinion. Absolutely.